2. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we've had several hearings and discussions that led up to the introduction of this bill, and I was hoping that we could work together. I know I speak for myself, and I know that I may speak for others when I say that there are bringing the reauthorization of Magnuson Stevens to the committee and up to the floor is due. But over time, we've also heard a lot about flexibility in that same hearings and discussions that led up to the introduction of this bill 4742. And flexibility sounds good in part because it means something different to everyone. I know I say its beauty truly lies in the eye of the beholder. But one area where some have argued the Magnuson's Act needs additional flexibility is in timelines for rebuilding overfished stock. If we could just delay rebuilding a little longer and catch a little more today, they argue it will save jobs and communities. But the facts are that the law has significant flexibility already, and further delaying efforts to rebuild overfished stocks will only harm fishermen and others who rely on healthy fisheries for their livelihoods. Let's start with the flexibility in current law. The Magnuson's Act says that overfished fisheries must be rebuilt in as short a time as possible, but that rebuilding plans may be extended past the statutory 10-year deadline because of the biology of the stock, other environmental conditions, or international fishery agreements dictate otherwise. As a result, more than half of all rebuilding stocks have rebuilding timelines greater than 10 years, something that would be impossible under an inflexible statute. Further, NOAA interprets the law to require that rebuilding plans only need to have a 50% chance of success within the given timeline, even in the majority of cases where that timeline has been extended because of flexibility in the law. An inflexible law will certainly require fishing restrictions necessary to ensure rebuilding with 100% certainty. Finally, if a fishery loses the coin flip and does not rebuild within the time frame, the only consequence is that the Fishery Management Council must draw up a new plan. There are no penalties, no automatic quota cuts, no revocation of permits. Surely an inflexible law would require the fishery to be shut down after a rebuilding failure, but that has never happened. The rebuilding requirements under Magnuson already have a lot of bend, but these exceptions would push them past the breaking point. Just because a fish stock is overfished by another country's fishermen, or is struggling because of degraded habitat or water quality, or gets depleted by fishermen targeting other species, does not mean we should say that the stock never has to be rebuilt. But that is what this bill would do, particularly after adding the alarmingly broad and undefined exceptions for stocks affected by unusual events. The exceptions that are included in the bill will result in rebuilding plans with no deadlines at all. We have seen this movie before, and it was not pretty. Too much flexibility led to chronic overfishing and failure to take rebuilding seriously, devastating many fishing communities on the Atlantic, Pacific, and Gulf Coast in the 1980s and 1990s. Fortunately, the last Magnuson reauthorization moved us beyond those bad old days. While the legacy of poor decisions and a lack of willpower still haunt certain fisheries, some, like the Pacific whiting and groundfish fleets, have taken their medicine and become more profitable and sustainable in short order. The bottom line is that communities with healthy fisheries don't want this kind of flexibility, and communities that have depleted fisheries can't afford it. Rebuilding overfished stocks is the road to improving fishing economies. NOAA estimates that fully rebuilt fisheries would add an estimated $31 billion to the economy and create 500,000 new jobs, increases of 17% and 33% respectively. My amendment is very simple, Mr. Chairman. It will strike these job-killing exceptions to rebuilding requirements and retain the existing flexibility in a law that is helping to grow a renewable resource and improve economic opportunity for fishermen. And I urge a support for my amendment, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I recognize myself in opposition to the amendment. I'm not going to overstate but sometimes language we use around here that this guts the intent. But when gentleman offers amendment to strike the very heart of what we're trying to do, giving flexibility to councils, then sometimes that may be appropriate language. But I'm not going to use it today in deference to my good friend. But I don't think that by striking what we are attempting to do here in the flexibility would adds anything to this bill. And I also want to remind my colleagues that while we give flexibility to the councils, that is not a blank check. We heard over and over again that the Magnuson-Stevens Act works very, very well, but there needs to be some flexibility. But the flexibility that we put in this bill is just simply not a blank check to all the councils. And so I think that the language we have in here allowing for that flexibility is much better, and the gentleman's amendment would seek to strike most of that flexibility, and that is contrary to what we're trying to do, so I urge rejection of the amendment. Is there further discussion? If not, the question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from the Northern Marianas. As many are in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. Once again, the noes have it. Those have it. Amendment is not agreed to. The next amendment is amendment offered by the gentlelady from Massachusetts, Mrs. Songus, number 003. The gentlelady is recognized for 5